people were there. So I'll pass to Angela to give updates on the onboarding working group, on the status from Eli and Jonas and Dulce, and then we can open the topic of the executive layer. And sorry, I'll just give an overview of what we're aiming to do today. That is the onboarding working group updates, and then Ostrom principles. So our working group, it's not as objective as the comms one, unfortunately. So I spent a lot of time in this board this week and researching how we can move forward with the amount of data we have. So I started to collect some points on correlating what we have with Ostrom principles, and we'll dive more into that. And then just an update on the accountability layer that we discussed last week. And I'll pass to you, Angela.
Okay. I'll keep it short because all I have to say is that I'm really happy with the progress the guys are making, Eli, Jonas, and Dulce. And it might be some overlaps perhaps with other working groups, and that's totally fine for us. It's making, let's say, try to make the most out of what we can do during the course, and then, let's say, put the scenarios on the table and then start the process, of course, to discuss it with tech and legal and culture and comms and see, okay, how can we funnel it towards the best solution for TE Commons, right? So this is just to give you some context here. And I told them, hey, there are limitations, but don't try to fit to limitations only. Try to keep the horizon wide and collect as many insights about stakeholders as possible. All right, Eli, Dulce, Jonas, stage is yours.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
So I'm not sure if you saw our Miro board. I can paste that into the channel right now. It's not super important now, but I thought it'd be useful to let you poke around in our collective brain. It's sort of like a mix of stakeholder boards plus some sketching out of the cryptoeconomic scenarios we're imagining. And then in terms of our progress, we're finalizing some questions to send out for stakeholder interviews to sort of test our assumptions about the cryptoeconomics so far. So we'd love anyone's feedback on that, and we're going to try to have them sent out basically as soon as possible, but I can give you a more specific date shortly. Oh, and I will send a link, yeah.
Yeah. We'll probably just put it in the SoftGov working group channel in Discord.
And I can put it in there.
And feel free to add any other questions that are relevant for you or get feedback. It's important.
If you guys want to schedule a time to ask me questions or deep dive, I'm kind of falling into the product owner role and know the limitations of the tech spec. So I'm happy to go for a deep dive conversation if you guys need.
Sounds good. We'll let you know.
I would love to join this session to get a better understanding. I think that's just a perfect opportunity. And one question regarding, you said you send it out. What do you plan at the moment? One-to-one video call interviews or survey only?
So some combination of both, depending on what we decide is an adequate number of people to sort of test out our assumptions.
Makes sense.
If it's a lot, then ideally surveys, because interviews are hard to schedule.
Maybe you can share your screen, Eli, because I think we need to ask permission for the board. So it might be easier if you.
Oh,
If you
sorry. I can. Wait, the Miro board you need permission for?
That's what you wanted to go through, right?
Oh, I just thought it'd be useful to just to share it in case you're curious. But hold on, let me open it up. A sec. Okay, you should be able to access it now.
X-rays running low. Can I plug into there?
There's nothing specific that I think is like needed to go over right now with all of you here. But if anyone has questions, feel free to let any of us know, and we'll be happy to walk you through it.
Sorry, I'm a bit lost. So I am in the soft governance and culture board, but what we need to do is like the Ostrom principles.
We're gonna get in there. We're just hearing some updates from the onboarding working group. Maybe, Angela, do you have some points that you would like to cover on that, or maybe we should move forward?
Anything? I mean, it's up to Eli to give us an overview, or I'm not sure what I can add here.
I mean, I'm happy to pass it to Jonas or Dulce if they have anything specific, but I think we'll go in more detail, like into the cryptoeconomics once, like, we finalize the questions and we're a bit further down. But for now, like, it's not really a hard need.
I mean, I can briefly share my screen and go on the board and show what our priorities has been.
Sure, that sounds good.
So in general, I think the biggest challenge we had with this process is to specify what the TE Commons is going to be actually used for. For instance, in the stakeholder document, Angela and others added multiple scenarios where it could go, how inclusive or exclusive the TE Commons might be, and so on. So our challenge, there has been a lot of work about the vision of TE Commons, what the purpose should be. And so the challenge right now for the stakeholder research is to see how, like, what specific things should the TE Commons do. And so first of all, we went over all the stakeholders we could imagine and what they might contribute in this big board. I think there is no value right now to go over all the details, but this is basically how we started out. Then to get a little more concrete, we mapped out what might be different actors from a background perspective, like what their skills are, what their interests and output might be for the TE Commons, and what types of contributions they might make. And we mapped out all of this. So in the end, after the interviews, we can inform our stakeholder boards, our expectations with this. Because we started out with doing portraits and then we realized we don't want to speculate on what people actually want. We want to first go into these interviews and then inform with the material of the interviews this research. And so in general, what we have been doing till now is generally brainstorm and map out what could be the specifics of what the TE Commons is used for, going more into detail than the general vision that was already worked on extensively. Yeah, I think if you're interested, you can go over the board, as Eli said, it's kind of going through our brains. But I think that's a good update where we are right now with the process.
Awesome. Thank you. So, so now we can go to challenge of executive layer.
Yeah. I just want to briefly highlight what we've been discussing in the last couple of days on executive layers. I hope you can see my screen now. Can you? Can you give me any signal if you can see my screen? Okay, brilliant. So I've tried to collect the question on an executive layer popped up when I was reviewing, okay, what should stakeholders do? What can we do with the technical setup we have at the moment with voting and distributing funds? Then there is still something that Jessica, I guess, phrased like, okay, there must be somebody to clean up after the party. And you could take it like that. So there are still tasks that might not be taken over by anybody at any time. And I've tried to make a summary of examples of such tasks we should take a look at. So, for example, an interface to outsiders for signing service contracts to non-members of the community. This could be, for example, if we are ever able to have a local event again, and we want to organize it and then also have a location, then you always have some service contracts. Who should be able to sign such contracts? Or for holding keys.
Is there a link to this document?
Yes, there's the link in the onboarding group, and I can also paste
It's also
it.
in the agenda in the mirror.
Okay.
Is it? Okay, can you find it? Let me know. Okay, for holding keys like accounts, credentials, rights for community infrastructure like the Discord server, like social media accounts, like wallets. Then for holding assets like the Twitter account as like an asset with all the communities we collected, the YouTube with, I guess, at the moment 650 registrations, the web domains, platforms also like the Token Engineering Academy. Then for preparing votes, putting together all information required to take a decision. For example, okay, now we are mostly focusing on proposals, like what do we want to fund? But there might be also proposals how to take the next step in the smart contracts for decision making. Now, in case we require specific expertise, we can't out of reach in our community, so that we don't have a contributor signing up for, let's say, for a smart contract audit. Who is preparing the votes here, making a recommendation or providing all the information necessary to take a decision, right? Or if we need to onboard legal or other advice beyond our community. Then, for example, solving issues, whatever it might take, I call it community maintenance. So those tiny little things like the website is down or Praise doesn't work or a logo is not available. Tiny tasks that nobody is fond of taking care for, perhaps too tiny to push it to community voting. Or take emergency decision when a quick reaction is required in case of a hack or a bug of our bonding curve. For conflict resolution and enforcing community rules, another aspect. As a custodian, if he needed, holding funds in fiat and crypto. As representatives of community members, if community members are lacking bandwidth, or taking care that proposals are executable. So are there any policies to make sure that it's not only that the end of a voting process is not the voting itself, but delivering on proposals? And all these tasks, it's a list, perhaps it's not even complete. The thing is, I found that many people at the moment are just assuming that there will be some management of the community, but this kind of some management is just not growing out of thin air. We have to make decisions here, and I just wanted to highlight that these are areas where I see a need. It might not be one layer, so not 3 people responsible for all those tasks. We might have different entities taking over such responsibilities, but I guess it's worth discussing it.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you so much for making that list, because this falls a lot into the boundaries of the system, the roles, so many questions that we do have with self-governance. And does anybody have any questions? Maybe 1 or 2 minutes of questions to this document before we go to the Ostrom principles?
It's not a question, it's just lots of gratitude. This is an amazing document. It lists out a lot of opportunities for a group of doers to take action, and that we might want to have as initial proposals that are ready to go right away, so that we don't have to miss a beat. I feel like a lot of people might think, oh, executive branch of the government, and that's not necessarily what this looks like to me. It's not a monopoly on all execution like we have in normal governments, but instead it's a lot of small autonomous departments that at least know their role and know that things need to be done. And I think that makes sense. We just have to call out power dynamics, because that's what executive layers do, is they create a power dynamic. You just got to call it out and make sure that there's accountability and understanding. There's accountability and
exactly, and that's the whole purpose of this process for me, because I just want to make sure that roles that need to be covered and decisions that at some point have to be made are that we are ready to take decisions, and that any individual who is signing up is aware of responsibility and accountability, and at the same time that this is transparent to all other community members.
I think this is a great use for the Notion or the ClickUp, some type of management of tasks tool. That we could see everything that is up, and when new contributors join, they know what they can do, and they know tasks that can be picked up and who is responsible for what, and a way to have it all organized for all of us. So maybe it's something we can discuss in our next call, the community steward call.
All right.
2 questions. Where can I find this document? I didn't hear that.
I just posted it. I put it in the SG this Tech SoftGov working group channel.
In text. Okay.
Great. So I would like to jump into a review of Ostrom's principles.
Do you hear me?
Is anybody speaking?
Yeah, I was speaking. Do you hear me?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I changed channel. The second question is, I know that Common Stack work with holacracy. So if that is true, then can we have maybe a way of replicating that approach here, so that we work with roles, define circles, and so on, Like, in my personal opinion, I believe that there is not coming people that say, oh, no, this needs to be completely decentralized. People want stuff that work, not things that get to vote on everything. So my approach on this is to have these executive layers and to have people that take decisions that are in the place to take the decisions, like they know how to take decisions, but at the same time that anybody that is a trusted person can say, hey, that vote or that decision, I think is not that way. So that can argument against any decision taken. But that will be like the specific cases. But for default, let the people that know and that work to take the decisions. Just that.
CommonSec doesn't really use holacracy because we're only like 4 people. So I mean, we just kind of take what comes with us. But I think it makes sense for larger organizations. And Giveth used to use holacracy and still does to some extent. So yeah, we can talk if you want.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'll share my screen and bring you guys to this board of Ostrom principles.
Oh, sorry. Can I ask one question?
Sure.
To Angela and friends from the TE Academy, are you planning on drafting from this research initial proposals as options for the parameters around the launch and what stakeholders we would like, or is it going to be like more like a drafted recommendation and you'll open it up to different proposals? The next step in the process?
So I think the plan is
To me,
sorry. I think end plan like this.
I mean, first of all, so the result as stated in the manifesto are 3 scenarios. What I don't want to do is that we just take the scenarios, put it up for voting without any further discussion, because
I can't hear for some reason. Is that just me?
I should be on.
Yeah, I can hear.
You may have muted. You can individually mute people, and Angela had some feedback before, so you may have already muted her.
Okay, test. 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me, Jess?
Check.
Okay, I hope it's fine. Yeah, so what I don't want to do is just taking these scenarios, put it up for voting, and that's it. I'd rather then, if we have the scenario settled, go into a discussion, align it with comms, tech, further also legal and soft culture, so that we have a solid result supported by all working groups and not randomly voting on scenarios. Jess, I hope you've been able to hear me too.
I will watch the recording. It is me.
Okay.
Livy. Thank you for answering. I'll watch the recording and message you if I have any further questions. Apologize, Livy.
Okay.
No problem. Here we go. Okay, so this the objective of this working group was to sync as much data as possible with the 8 Ostrom principles and make sure that we are somehow going in this direction. So I'll go one by one. They are quick, and I'll point the places where there are space for us to have discussions and where I think it's mostly missing information right now. So principle number 1, comms need to have clearly defined boundaries. I would like to hear more inputs here, but my understanding of the boundaries we have right now is the onboarding process for contributors, the stakeholders onboarding process that we're developing that they mean who is allowed to hold governance rights, and this is a huge boundary. The contribution reward process, so the way we have, the way we reward contribution, it's also some type of a boundary. Our code of conduct, vision, mission, and values to make sure we are aligned somehow. And Griff just added tokens. And then number 2, rules to need to fit local circumstances. This is, I think, where we have most open right now, because what are our local circumstances? We are a decentralized crypto community, so the local circumstances are very broad. And what are the rules that we are building and how they can be enforced after the launch? This is an issue that I had in a past community that I was a part of, and I see in other communities too, is how can we enforce soft governance? Because once voting is there, once other processes that are on-chain are there, it becomes very hard to track all the collaboration we're having, especially when we're scaling. So I would love to hear more inputs in number 2. And then number 3, participatory decision making. We have the advice process, and one question is, would we like to keep it after the launch? I think is important, and it falls back into number 2. It's a soft governance rule, let's say, that I don't know how we would be able to enforce it, but I think it's very healthy for the ecosystem to have some type of process for the proposal making before the voting. And then conviction voting is participatory decision making tool we'll have once we're launched. Number 4, commons must receive legal recognition in jurisdictions where they operate. The trusted seed, like Griff was explaining in the comms working group, is somehow a part of this legal structure, and we definitely need more. So this will come with the legal working group that we should start iterating on. So if you guys are interested on starting a legal working group, if you know crypto lawyers that would want to come play with us, let's start this conversation. Number 6, sanctions for violations should be graduated. Juan is making amazing progress with the conflict resolution process, and he'll jump into it very soon to show a bit more of how grounded it is. It came from a complexity of many ideas to very simple steps that are very realistically aligned with the commons that we are building. And then 5, rules are enforced by effective and accountable monitoring. So how to enforce mutual accountability? I think this has a lot to do with what Angela was just speaking about, and with having a place where we can see all the tasks from the community, who are the owners of those tasks. One source of truth document, and that we can all track progress from there. And this creates mutual accountability. And yeah, I think that's what I meant by workflow charts. And then number 8, comms should be nested ecosystems within larger commons. We are inside of the Ethereum ecosystem, and we're also developing DAO to DAO relationships, which will create ecosystems inside of ecosystems, and we can create a mutual support relationship from there. And also the sub-DAOs that will be funded from the token engineering commons. And then conflict resolution should be easily accessible and low cost. So part of one conflict resolution practice is to have experts training on conflict resolution towards community members. So we can have local mediators. And I've been studying about how that is way more effective than having external conflict mediators to at least be the first point of contact, so people feel like they are talking to someone they understand and that understand the conflicts where they're coming from. And then if this doesn't provide any solutions, then we can bring to dispute with external parties like Claros or Aragon Court or other types of external dispute parties that we can think of. So I'll open for questions, comments now, and yeah, please feel free to jump in this board and put more inputs.
Just a thing, can you hear me? Regarding the legal issue, do you know of legal hackers? It's a network of people interested in law and technology. International one. I will put it in the group. Okay.
Awesome.
I don't have any comments for now.
Okay, so one open question I have is, how do we think we can enforce soft governance practice once we launch the commons? And if this is something we are willing to create rules for? Yeah, Juan?
Livia, I think that yes, we can, because this weekend we were in a blockchain and crypto law lab, and that was a big question. Like, what is the difference between social law and traditional law? And like, after much discussions, at least the concept that I think I built is that there is no difference between social law and traditional law. I mean, like as in a sport game, there are laws that are only applied to that sport, and if you're not playing that sport, that rule don't apply to you. So it's like when people it gets into our community, they have to accept the rules that are marked, and that everyone has consensus on them. Yeah, you cannot disrespect another member or something. Like, there are these basic rules that can with consensus can be legitimate.
I agree 100%. And the challenge is, okay, we have these rules, but then anybody can submit a proposal, let's say. And the hard governance is open in a sense. So if I go there and I submit a proposal and I don't know of the soft governance rules of this community, and maybe other people will vote in this proposal, like, what would make community members not vote in a proposal of someone that is not aligned with the soft governance rules?
I think the biggest thing here is that these governance rules are understood by a vast majority of the crew and ideally written down, so it's easily referenced and accessible. I think that's the big difference between social law and regular law. It's that regular law, it's all written down, and there's specific people that are appointed to judge whether it's right, whether it's true or not, and there's a whole system in place. Whereas social law, it's sort of, I don't want to say mob rule, but sort of, right? Like, where there's a general understanding and people can see this vote, this proposal for something that they know is not part of the mission of the token engineering commons, and they can confidently, vote against it, or even write in the forum, this is against the proposed like rules, and if you really want to do this, then here's the system of how to change the rules. Because that's one of the Eleanor Ostrom's main thing, is that one of the principles is that the participants of the systems have to be able to change the rules. So sometimes something that is against the rules might be important to do for our mission. Yeah, Santi.
Yeah, in other DAOs I've been participating, they force you to sign their constitution when you apply to be part of the DAO. And unless you accept it, you are not a member. You cannot become a member. I know it's kind of tough to, think of all the rules that we may have, but at least start with an initial document. It can be a living document. We can update the document whenever we want, and you will have to re-sign it again. But at least there's something we all can refer to whenever there's any kind of conflict.
And that is a way to avoid subjectivity in the exposure of the facts, because people shouldn't be applying to subjective ethics, but to the ethics that the organization is promoting. I would really like if to like present a little bit of the idea, because I want to hear a review of like this draft that I've been trying to put together and ground with some ideas and make it simple. So
just can we give Fabian a chance? He was about to say something, and then I think we can probably change the topic. If that's okay.
Yeah, thanks, and I will Juan it is. I liked what you said. I just want to point out that this may be a very delicate and nuanced topic, right? We can say, oh, we've written the ethics down and it's fine. And in a small group where we are now, that works fairly well. Yeah, I hear my echo, so somebody's hearing me. So basically, you want to have a fairly explored understanding of what principles you want to be guided by. It doesn't mean that it needs to be like regular law, that everything needs to be nailed down in detail, but you want to have some kind of referent of what principles that you're guided by. Also, when you grow, basically, what if this group is at some point only making up a small minority of like a much larger pool, and you want to be able to change the rules because you want to be able to adopt for future unforeseen circumstances, but you want to be sure that this is done in a safe way and that it's not arbitrary, suddenly, a large group comes in and starts to derail the thing. So these are very, very subtle and delicate topics. And I just wanted to kind of put a little bit of emphasis, because I agree with what you say in nature, but when you deal with the real world, it may quickly get like quite a bit more challenging than it may initially look like. But I'm very curious what you're going to share.
Well, yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think that's why there must be a clear definition of the values and the ethics of the organization, in order so that would be like the common language for addressing the issues. Okay, I'm gonna present like a little bit of the idea. Referencia del sistema.
And Livia, did you want to time box one?
Yeah, I'm so upset I couldn't hear. I'm so upset I couldn't hear. Juan, you have 5 minutes. You have, right?
Yes. Well, I won't share my screen because I would have to reboot the application. So if anyone wants to join the document, the link to the document is in the Miro board, is in the Discord. And basically, well, the name of the proposal that I've been thinking about, and I've heard that the people like it, is gravity as the energy that keeps matter together when things start like pushing away from each other. And yeah, like I think that in human logic, the veracity of something is related to an earlier presumption of truth. So the dynamic that is suggested has to be legitimated as a common agreement. Where, like, as I mentioned earlier, in sports, when you play a sport, you accept the rules of that sport you are playing. So trying to address and following some of Ostrom's principles, I propose that there should be transparent human monitoring. That should be like this group that should have like that should address power dynamics, but there should be rotation in this group because in other way there could be centralization of power. There should be like graduate extensions and easy access for conflict management. So for the graduate extensions, I propose something also like in sports, like yellow cards and red cards and verbal warnings. Like there are these common issues that can be easily addressed. For those, there shouldn't be like a long process or like a complex process to address with them. There should be like these simple ways to address common issues, as I mentioned, if you're playing a sport and you have a yellow card, you recognize that you have a yellow card and you know what you're doing and what you are can happen to you if you continue behaving badly. So it's like a way to scale these sanctions that could start like light sanctions, medium sanctions, and they're like these red cards where privileges can be removed, like removing some CS tag tokens or banning for community calls or even requesting for an external arbitrage if a decision cannot be taken between these members. And I also think that if a person is being like sanctioned and if he doesn't agree with the sanction, there can be like counter arguments to start a negotiating process with a subject matter expert in conflict management. So that's basically the idea. And there could be like these scaling stages in the conflict management process where there could start like negotiation, mediation, conciliation, and then finally, if there's no consensus inside the organization, that's when you call an external arbiter. So that's the idea.
I have a question regarding rotation and avoid centralization of power in whatever area, conflict resolution or others, enforcing rules, whatever. My experience in communities is not only that you have people who want to stick to their role and their power. It can also be the other way around, that you don't have anybody who wants to take over responsibility. So what can we do here? Just imagine we start with a conflict resolution group and have, I don't know, 3 people, and in the course of 6 months, those 3 people, don't have the bandwidth anymore and just quit, and we end up with having anybody. Is this also somewhere covered, or are there ideas how to deal with that?
Well, I think those parts are where I need this group's guidance, because like having this idea, but I would really like to have it really grounded and polished with everyone's expertise. I think that some of these parameters are arbitrary. Like maybe we can have a rotation like every 3 years, and like the person that passed these 3 years cannot join the group for a period of time, and then he can join again. I mean, these are things that should be like agreed between us, because that's what gives legitimacy to them.
I think in this sense, I like the approach of training members of the community to become conflict resolutors, because and maybe there could be a reward for that and an incentive for people to participate in these courses, because then it touches into the intrinsic motivation of, like, maybe there is a conflict that people feel somehow closer to, that they would like to solve, and then this would naturally gravitate between multiple people and not be just one centralized group.
Yeah, and we also have certain
That's an interesting
examples,
element.
and we also have certain examples where this where we can draw from the real world. For example, historically, the First Nations, they had the mechanism of, well, essentially they were vibe watchers. So they basically had a group of people that were just, they had a rule where one of their basic rules were that you had to come from a place of peace, right? You couldn't be participating in proceeding, but if you get upset and angry, they say, like, that's not a sound basis to make any kind of judgment or any kind of proposal. So first you have to come back a bit more to center. And they would have vibe watchers, the people that would basically, like you said, they would basically flag people, and then they would be suspended from interacting. They could still participate, but they had to, even if they lost a loved one, for example, and there was a perfectly reasonable reason why they would go through grief, for example, that's fine. They just are required to basically take care of their own centered state, so that they can be back and from a pure state act again. So that's probably on the milder version, where we basically just temporarily inhibit and suspend people. Then if we go across the spectrum towards more conflict resolution, where things can be more agitated, you probably need more specialized mechanisms where you appoint people or have some kind of almost like a framework to evaluate and in a wider sense judge what is an adequate response. And if you push it further, then this is something that we've been discussing over the past few days in the context of a future law. It's like, what happens if you really have criminal conduct and you actually need to basically decide with some kind of response to basically either prevent, inhibit, or take some kind of action. So there's definitely a spectrum here, and we have examples on that, I'm not saying we need to adopt what exists so far, but it's always helpful to kind of see which models work, why they work, where they're exposed, where they break down, and then learn from it. And it's a very interesting topic.
Sorry.
Yeah, I just want to share an experience that happened in our community. We are a community of 10,000 Latinx in Slack, and we have moderators. And one thing that helps a lot is when people start fighting in the community, just stop the Slack, talk with the people, and sometimes you need like kind of pacifist. And I like what F8 say about the values. Like, for example, we have to change the code of conduct in the way that if you are saying or doing something that make somebody else feel unsafe, that is a fact that you are doing something wrong. And in my experience, sometimes what it helps is not like punish people, but sometimes people just need to talk, and need a medium, like a mediator, or I don't know how to say that in English, like a third medium person who can talk with both persons. That's something that helps a lot. Like, just stop people, like when they are fighting in a Slack, just like, hey, chill, and a third person talk with them. But I think it comes from what are the values of the communities. For example, for us as a Latinx in the States, it makes sense to create a safe space for Latinx. That was my experience with communities.
Thanks for sharing those things. I'll have to cut you here, Juan. I'm so sorry. Let's continue the conversation in the chat. You have 5 minutes to wrap up, and I just want to quickly go through the accountability that we talked so much about last week, and I've been researching about it. And there's one point in Ostrom's Governing the Commons book where she mentions that in order to create rules and to cooperate and to have accountability for the work, players need to signal intention to cooperate in the hope that they will reciprocate for a series of mutually productive plays. Thus, establishing trust, establishing a sense of community are, in their view, mechanisms for solving the problems of supplying new institutions. New institutions, they mean supplying new rules or supplying new structures for the collaboration to happen. So, thinking about that and the answers that we had in this board of the accountability, what is the main block for accountability? The main things that came up were personal things of not feeling like your work is valuable or not feeling included or not feeling important. So many things, feeling emotions related. And this brought me to think that that's maybe why accountability is such a big issue in our communities, because maybe we haven't been doing such a great job on providing trust rituals and building trust among people and not just as users, or I don't know, more impersonal terms that we tend to use a lot. So I would propose, if anybody has time, anytime this week, and we can coordinate in the chat to come up with trust rituals of like what types of practices we can have in these calls or in the ways we collaborate in the chat to create trust between each other. And I close this here, and maybe we can have a 20-second closing round to hear from everyone.
Well, I can start. Thank you guys so much. This is a great call. Dulce, I really appreciate the user story there. I try to write it down in this document. If anyone else has user stories of conflicts that arise, that's really valuable for us to design a system that will accomplish them. So feel free to go into the conflict resolution for the TEC doc, and there's a subject header called user stories. Put something in there, and let's make sure that we have a system that will address those conflicts. I'll pass it to Angela.
Okay, yeah, a lot of material to digest. Happy to take a look at the conflict resolution as well, and trying to catch up with everything that happened in the other groups. I pass on to Manu.
Yeah, thanks everyone. We're learning a lot from you guys, so I'm super glad to be here, and I'm really looking forward to continue contributing on the softball and also in the comms and whatever I'm needed. I'm here to help. And I pass it to Santi. Hey everyone, thank you.
Bye. Well, I want to thank everyone. It's awesome to see all the information that's being created here on the group and trying to catch up with everything. Just resonating from Livia's last words, I think one of the things that we could do to try to create more trust between the groups is to maybe every once in a while. I know that everyone's got a tight schedule, but we are like running all the time and doing all these meetings, work meetings. Maybe just have one meeting, no work meeting, just to talk, just do whatever we want to do. It would link us a little bit more. And I'll pass it to Juan.
Thanks very much. I feel like I'm honored about all these amazing people, like listening to some of my ideas and reviewing. So I'm very happy about all this work, and I'll pass it to Dulce.
You're muted, Dulce.
I know. Yeah, super excited about know everybody here, and I'm just super happy. about learning from you, and super happy to see Griff here. I didn't know you were in this project, and now I know you are one of the leaders. That's super nice. And I pass to Jonas.
Yeah, I think it's great to have these calls where everybody quickly shares what they're working on, because this informs, I think, each other and what's going on, and to get feedback from other people, what they might think be important. So I'm pretty happy about that. I will pass to Eli.
Hey, yeah, it was nice to get out of our little insular bubble and hear what everyone else was up to. And I'm excited to hear or to show you what we get up to in the next week or so. I think you guys will be pretty interested. It'll be some fun stuff. And I'll pass to Septimus.
Thanks for I'm a bit nervous. I think like the things we were talking were awesome. Like I really like what I think it's Juan say about like when you are like when you misbehave and you have like the red card and yellow card, red card. So that helps people to understand what I mean, to understand they are behaving wrong, and it's a very nice thing like to change this behavior. I really like that idea, and thank you for the learning. And I'll pass to Anderson.
Hey, thanks, Septimus. Good job. Yeah, I just wanted to say good positive reinforcement to everyone. I think this is the right track, this kind of workflow that's been established in the working groups and the channels. Everything seems very focused. And yet, like you said, we can all come together and get out of our bubbles together. So yeah, I just want to give everyone a pat on the back. It's easy to be hard on ourselves, and because there's such a big impact to what we're doing. But I don't think we can go wrong this sort of weekly progress, like every meeting I made, and then the data collection too. Like there's always documents being produced. There's always everything's being crystallized into sort of actionable takeaways. So I just want to say good job, everyone. And I'll pass it to Angela, did you go?
I already did, but thanks for the kind words, Sean.
Thanks. Yeah. How about let's see, H Besso?
Thanks. Yeah, I'm Humberto. Yeah, I'm really excited about everything that is going on here. It's the advance has been amazing, and it's a great team. So let's keep the good vibe. I was also doing the LinkedIn. I just shared to Jessica so she can look at it, and later we can give the authority of the or the representation of LinkedIn to anybody that wants it. Yeah, cool. Have a good night, everybody.
I'll pass to Jess.
Thanks, Livy. Yeah, I just wanted to say there were two things. What Livia said about the human side, we've been having many discussions, and I'm very interested in finding ways for the rituals. And one of which I'll mention as a sneak preview, but we're not quite there. We're planning a happy Praise-Giving celebration for aligning with American Thanksgiving week. So we'll be sending something soon so we can have like a year in review, state of the non-state, and people can sing. I want to hear some like Latin songs. I'm hoping people will not be shy and bust out their guitar and just like sit around and share what people have been doing this year and praising people, and also letting people share poems or have some time for this open sharing, because Santi, also what you were saying, I think this is important, and it is a challenge, and what we have to figure out in virtual communities, how to feel like we are together. Jeff's brother got married virtually last weekend, and it inspired me that we can do these things and feel like we're there. So with those two things being said, I'm happy to hear everything happening, and we're so lucky to have the newcomers in the TE Academy. And Dolce, the fact that you're running a Slack with 10,000 people, we can learn so much from you. So thanks, everybody, and so grateful for all of your sharing.
There's I think Fabian still needs to go.
Fabian.
Right. Sure. Yeah, so I again, a lot of amazing content in here. I'm very much down for the legal group that was brought up, and Juan also like pursuing that direction. You know, if there's any way to contribute, to participate, I feel that's very, very valuable and very down for that. I like the idea of hanging out to gain familiarity and kind of develop that kind of social. It was brought up in the context of trust, and that's really wonderful. I do believe that there are additional layers required to kind of make trust scalable from a structural point of view. And because we have to understand, or at least I believe that for trust to emerge, there needs to be a certain degree of vulnerability. And I mean this, you know, in the widest sense as a kind of exposure. So technically we can almost think of the opposite of an LLC, right? If you have shielded liability, then you're structured in a way which kind of you create a kind of a separation from exposure. And while it's very important to make things safe, we are in the crypto space in generally a little bit top heavy on, you know, sometimes almost bordering kind of towards a paranoid approach of like making everything super safe. And then that creates this extreme isolation, which is necessary for some very critical cases, but it needs to be balanced. And so there are kind of probably new designs that need to emerge and be developed to create a social kind of exposure so that we have a network of trust that can be experienced. Anyway, I was very glad to be here. And yeah, I think I was the last. Otherwise, next, please go.
Jonah still didn't go.
I think I already went.
Craig hasn't.
Oops.
But
Craig hasn't. Julio.
Hi, Craig here. Kudos to all. Where to start? I'm just sponging everything up, learning so much, but also very interested in seeing the survey work out of the. That's going to be a gold mine. Again, to everybody, and anybody left? Julio, Quarto Julio?
Yeah, I don't have so much to add. I'm very happy here. It's a very interesting and community with a lot of potential, because there are a lot of interesting communities and a lot of beautiful and pleasant communities, but this is both interesting with potential. So I'm very excited about the future and also happy about this present. I was just thinking that everybody I want to make an intervention, I say like, no, it's a too much big thing. We need something more concrete, because I'm very like hyper excited about things and get too much in the long run. And so it came to mind to me that could be nice in the soft gov group, that is the group about the governance of the whole community, to know our personal defects and to communicate it to the others. For example, when I'm hungry, I tend to get nervous very early. So, for example, I know if I respond badly to you, don't care too much about it. Okay, something like that. Beyond, as we are doing, to praise ourselves and be grateful for our contributions, also to know our personal recurrent defects, I think would be nice. Because I don't know, maybe someone is too logoroic, or someone is the opposite of being too theoretic, like super concrete, and I don't know, just a thought. And nothing. There's anybody. I'm super tired. Sorry for my English that is not working today.
Your English is great. Thank you, everyone, for coming. And we're going to hang out here, Griff, I, Angela, Jess, and Craig, for our community steward call. And And it was great to see all of you, and we keep in touch. And there's more next week.
Ciao, muchas gracias.
Thank you, everyone.
Gracias. Ciao.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.